Hey, how's it going? My name is Vashthalas, if you didn't already know, and today I'm going to be reading the content update for 0.3, Path of Exile 2's new league, the third Edict. So let's get started. Here's the table of contents. Act 4, Interludes, Rise of the Abyssal League, Major Character Balance Overhaul, Support Gym System Overhaul, New Content and Features, Endgame Changes, Atlas Passive Tree Changes, Essence Rework, General Improvements, Player Changes, Ascendancy Changes, Passive Skill Tree Changes, Skill Changes, Unique Item changes, monster changes, quest changes, user interface changes, microtransaction changes, and bug fixes. Not bug changes, literally unplayable. Act 4. They've added Act 4. It's going to be coming out of Act 3, it looks like. Doriani has agreed to help you find an ancient weapon that can be used to fight corruption, the instrument of the third Edict. Journey to King's March. Hire a ship and set sail. Discover the Nagamakanui Archipelago, home to the Karui tribes, from the pristine beaches of Vakapanu Island to the volcanic shores of the Isle of Ken. There are 8 islands to explore, each with its own dangers and, of course, bosses. Act 4 is completely non-linear, and you can visit the islands in any order that you choose. Interludes. The third edict also marks the removal of cruel difficulty. We've introduced 3 temporary interludes, a set of side stories that will take you to level 65, where the endgame begins. Start fresh in a new economy with the rise of Abyssal's League. All of your old characters from early access launch are still present, but a free passive tree refund has been granted due to the changes. We would highly encourage you to join the new leagues to fully take in the changes we've made with the 0.3 update. Created by forbidden necromantic magic during the age of the precursors, the Abyssal have been hiding their time underground. Now, obeying the will of their general, they are emerging from the depths through fissures spreading across all of Rayclast. Fight this ancient evil, seal the fissures, and resist the rise of the Abyssals in Path of Exile 2's first full league. In your travels throughout Rayclast, you will encounter fissures in the ground, sapping the life force of monsters above. Slaying these monsters will trigger the Abyssal to emerge, enhanced with extra necromantic abilities from those whose power they are draining. You will need to defeat them close to the abyss. That's kind of interesting. So instead of spawning monsters, it's traveling underneath and siphoning them. Abysses increase in size, power, and variety as you go through the game. Closing them will reveal abyssal troves with valuable items and sometimes allow you to travel underground to engage with the abyssal directly. As you close abysses, you may find ancient bones that can be used to imbue your items with abyssal magic, adding hidden abyssal modifiers. Using the Well of Souls, which you discover in Act 2, you can reveal the desecrated modifier and choose to transform it. This is basically Syndicate content from PoE 1, or like a veiled modifier. I don't know if I'm saying Syndicate right. Betrayal. There we go. Betrayal content. By selecting one of the 3 different options. During the campaign, this allows you to more easily craft additional regular mods onto your items. During the endgame, new and powerful mods that were not previously possible to craft will be unlocked. The Well of Souls can also affect your waystones, granting new modifiers that will push difficulty and rewards to new heights. Delve into the abyssal depths, swarming with legions of the undead and guarding powerful rewards. Discover an ominous ancient spire and challenge the abyssal commanders in their attempt to plunge Rayclast into a lightless void. There are standard, hardcore, and solo self-found variations of the Rise of Abyssal's League available. They have the same core mechanics and items, and you can create private league versions of these leagues. Major Character Balance Overhaul. In 0.3, we are making very significant changes to character balance across the entire game. Our goal is to increase build diversity by making many more skills and character archetypes viable into the endgame. Love it. I want everything to have value. I want everything to have the ability to do all content. Some people may not like that, but if it's in the game, it should be viable. I'm just saying. Support Gym System Overhaul. There's obviously, take it with a grain of salt, alright? Before we continue, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not saying everything needs to blow everything up. But there should be a solution for every skill's problem. There should be an item that enables it, or there should be a specific set of modifiers that are going to let it go and do the Ashen boss or whatever it is. I can't really remember all the boss names, I'm sorry. So, let's get to reading this Support Gym Overhaul, since it doesn't really go too deep into the Major Character Balance Overhaul. But I guess it's starting off with the support gym, so That's where it's going to further explain it. Support gem are an area that's got some of the most major changes to the core design. They are what enable so many interesting mechanics and different ways to play, but PoE2's support gem system has just never been quite right. One of the major issues is the limitation of only having one support gem of each type of your character. We didn't want builds to just become using the same 5 most powerful supports on every skill, but we also wanted to encourage you to combo your abilities. We've removed the restriction of having one of each support gem per character. You can use as many copies as you like. Love it! Before it was incredibly restrictive. I think this is absolutely the right decision. Many supports have now multiple tiers as you progress through the game, providing different stat values, additional stats, or perhaps working a bit different to their lower tier counterparts. Due to these changes, many existing support gems, which will now be Tier 1 for cases where multiple tiers now exist, have received small numerical balance changes, and the effects of some support gems have been combined into a single gem. What I really desire from changes like this is visual representation. All right. If it's not a visual representation and it's just a stat diff, that's a flaw. The player needs to see something changing, whether it's just a color difference, right? If I'm shooting a fireball, does the fireball turn blue because it's getting hotter? Or is it a white fire now because it's as hot as it could possibly be, right? It's like a neutron star hot. There's layers to visual representation, and it doesn't always have to be like more projectiles. It could be a cooler sound. I don't know. Just something to let you know that growth is occurring with your choice. I'll get off my soapbox. We've added 11 new support gems with 0.3. Cool. We've also introduced 40 lineage supports, much more powerful supports that are only available in the in-game. Alluring! A new number of support gems with simple effects have been renamed with names that more obviously hint at their functionality. Good. I love clarity. Blood in the eyes, discombobulate, unsteady tempo, unbaiting, unbending, untouchable, and unyielding can no longer be engraved in the gem cutting menu, and existing gems will be deleted upon logging in. I do not know these well enough to know exactly what is being taken away here. Was untouchable the stun threshold? Or unyielding? That'll make me sad. I really love Perfect Strike, and I think I may have been using one of these to make sure I don't get knocked out. Updated the wording for support gems, which add a cooldown to supported skills. This has not resulted in a change in functionality, with the exception of Expanse support, which incorrectly had a 6-second cooldown when it stated 8 seconds. It now correctly has an 8-second cooldown. It's just like a visual mistake. Updated the description of the last grass support to mention that the supported minions die before the support gem's duration expires if they take damage exceeding their maximum life with fatally wounded. This functionality was already present but was previously not mentioned. Support gems support skills you use yourself can no longer support persistent skills. They can still support gems that have both a persistent component and a manually activated component, such as Plague Bearer. In addition, we've fixed a bug where numerous supports, which support skills you use yourself, could still be used by totems or triggered skills. These are no longer due to they specify otherwise. Hooray! OBS reconnected to the stream. Nice. Clarified the wording of muster support to refer specifically to the number of different reviving minions you have. This is not a functionality change. I have the worst internet, I swear. It's constantly going in and out. Having a skill with socketed support gems, you do not meet the attribute requirements for now disables just those support gems instead of disabling the entire skill. I need to read this one again. Okay, cool. All right. What all that is it's kind of like a quality of life change, right? Like it's just not as annoying if you have a support gem that you want to keep in there, but you don't quite have the attribute for it just yet. I don't know. I appreciate that change. The Lightning, Cold, Fire, Chaos, and Fusion support gems have been renamed to Lightning, Cold, Fire, Chaos, Attunement. Why? What was wrong with Infusion? Was this necessary? Um, New content and features. Added a new strength skill gem, Fortifying Cry. Perform a war cry that grants guard and causes subsequent shield attacks to release an empowered shockwave and dealing damage. This skill's cooldown can be bypassed by expending an endurance charge. That's cool. Adding a new strength skill gem, Forge Hammer, Hurl of Fire. This is the one that they were showing in the teaser release, or the reveal. Yeah, that's the right word. While the hammer is lodged into the ground, reusing the skill recalls the hammer and resets the skill's cooldown. Alternatively, using a war cry near lodged hammer causes it to shatter, releasing a number of molten fissures in a spiral. I feel like this is going to be a super popular choice for anyone trying out Warrior, as it looked gorgeous. The fire spirals looked like it was absolutely spamming. Yet to be seen as to how good it actually is, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people will at least give it a try. Added a new strength skill gem, Ancestral Cry, performing a war cry using Glory. I'm hearing that not many people actually enjoy Glory as a mechanic, so we'll see if it's fun. Gained by igniting enemies to turn you into an embodiment of Comb. I always am unsure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. While embodying Comb, your footsteps trigger volcanic steps. Melee strikes and slams are ancestrally boosted, and your melee attack hits trigger volcanic eruption. That sounds super thematic. You war cry and you become the embodiment of Calm. Very, very cool. I just want to see what it looks like. That looks. I mean, that sounds fantastic. Not looks. I'm seeing it in my mind. Added a new dexterity skill gem, Toxic Domain. Create in an area of toxic bloom on the ground around you. While in the bloom, you have increased skill costs, regenerate life, and your projectile attacks attach a toxic pustule which can be poisoned. Pustules will donate after a duration or when enough poison has been applied, dealing damage and applying poison in an area around it. Okay, I'm calling it now. This is probably going to cause a bug. This is probably going to cause a bug just like the flower pods or whatever it was, to where if you got one of those hammers that dealt splash damage, you would hit a bunch of times in a very small amount. Okay. Um, I hope I'm wrong, but this sounds far too similar. Sounds very similar. Added a new dexterity skill gem, Ice-Tipped Arrows. Ready your active bow or spill, empowering your next barrageable bow or projectile spear attacks to create ice fragments on hit. This skill's cooldown can be bypassed by expending a frenzy charge. Okay, it's just a buff. Added a new intelligence skill gem. Frost Darts conjures a number of icy projectiles that launch towards the target. Projectiles that hit a chilled or frozen enemy create chunks of ice that deal additional damage on impacting the ground. Consumes a cold infusion if possible to cause each projectile to lodge into the enemy, then explode. Mechanics. But cold infusion, cringe. Not a big fan of the spirit gem that I think that comes from. Added a new strength persistent buff. Or no, gem, sorry. Iron Ward, while active, stores a percentage of the physical damage that is prevented by your armor or other sources of damage reduction. Using this skill releases the stored damage as a nova of spikes. Sounds cool. If it's a spirit reservation, is it worth it? Mortar Cannon raises a cannon totem which uses socketed grenade skills with significantly improved cooldown recovery rate. Grenade totems. Grenade cannons. I guess it's not totems anymore. It's a cannon. Added a new dexterity persistent buff gem. Mirage Archer. While active, dodge rolling will create a mirage that uses socketed range attacks for a short duration, then vanish. This looks really, really cool. It's basically Bama, as the capability of what you want it to do is whatever is available, in all honesty. Obviously not directly Bama. It's not a minion, I don't think. Am I wrong? Yeah, it says Mirage, so it's not a minion. It's not technically Bama like a lot of people were pogging out about, but Definitely a very, very cool thing to have in Path of Exile 2. I love Mirage Archer in PoE 1. I've never made a Mirage Archer build. Maybe I should at some point. Added a new intelligence persistent buff gem. Ravenous Swarm. While active and enemies are nearby, swarms of insects emerge from your body and pursue enemies. The swarms are untargetable minions that periodically attack and poison enemies with the swarm. That sounds OP. Minion poison build with just untargetable minions. Are those spiders? Spider build, log in. Added a new intelligence persistent buff gem. Siphons elements. While active, has a chance to create an infusion remnant when you freeze, shock, or ignite a target. It's just infusion generation, I suppose. Grimfeast has been completely reworked and re-enabled. Instead of granting energy shield, it now allows you to collect remnants from your dead reviving minions. Then activate the skill to instantly revive minions based on their maximum life. Completely reworked, dude. It's over. Energy Andy's in shambles. Added a new keystone passive skill to the northwest of the monk starting location. Hollow palm technique. Unarmed enjoyers, log in. This is your sign. This is your bat signal. If you enjoy the concept of being unarmed and fighting hordes of monsters, this is for you. Allows you to use your quarterstaff attacks while unarmed and grants those attacks additional benefits while being unarmed. Added a new keystone passive skill to the northeast of the witch/sorceress starting location. Ritual Cadence. This keystone changes your invocations to trigger skills every 2 seconds. Oh my god. Instead of all at once. But triggered skills consume less energy. I don't actually know if that's good. Consumes less energy. So definitely useful. But again, I don't think I've played a Witcher Sorceress enough to really know the application of it. I've kind of just been playing melee over and over again, and then the last season, Dawn of the Hunt, I just played a Tangle Tongue, irony, auto attack Amazon, and I didn't go energy shield like a dummy, and I ended up having a bad time. Go figure. No way. Auto attack only build wasn't the best. But it is in the game. You can empower auto attacks from spears with frenzy charges. If they let me use all the support gems that I wanted on different skills, I feel like it would have been okay. Probably not, but I'm coping, so you can't stop me. Added a new keystone passive skill to the northwest of the witch sorcerer starting location. Another Black Flame Covenant. This isn't fair. The keystone converts the fire damage to chaos damage, with this damage contributing to ignite chance and magnitude, and ignites inflicted with fire skills dealing chaos damage. Has there ever been chaos conversion before in PoE 1? I'm not really sure. Very cool. Apparently this also turns your fire skills purple, if you weren't paying attention in the reveal trailer. Added a new keystone passive skill to the east of the monk's starting location, Walker of the Wilds. This keystone causes mana leech to recover based on elemental damage types instead of physical damage. This is certainly useful to, at least in my imagination, bow builds, as there are a lot of very good bow skills that deal elemental damage. And honestly, yeah, just in general, this is probably very useful. A lot of people are going to be picking this up because it has no real downside. It's just build enabling. Just a build enabling keystone. Added the following new currency orbs that started dropping from the late campaign and maps. Those are all the new currency items. Added a new type of currency, Hinakora's Lock, which can be used to foresee results. That's from PoE 1 as well. Added a new 10 unique items. I love unique items. Where are they at? I want to read them. Added 50 new base item types. The Scythe is the one that I noticed the most. Super excited to try that out, see how it feels, whether or not it's able to be built around. Coming from the guy who's an auto attack Andy. What can I say? I like suffering and imprisoning myself in odd experiences. I guess. Endgame Changes. Currently, access to the most pinnacle content requires the same key at the easiest and most difficult version of the content. This creates a negative feeling where at lower difficulties, instead of wanting to run the content, you're often better off just selling it to someone who can run it at a maximum difficulty. To address this, each content, excluding the Arbiter of Ash, that's his name, the Arbiter of Ash. I said the Ashen one like it was Dark Souls or something. Will now drop splinters, which will not inform. Did I say inform? I don't know. Into singular items. Instead of using singular combined items in the Realm Gate, I didn't know it was called that, you can now just bring your splinters upon inserting the splinters into the Realm Gate. I'm getting confused now. And an interface will appear allowing you to pick the difficulty, each with a different entry cost. Okay? I'm nodding along and smiling. As a result of this change, the corresponding Atlas passive trees no longer affects the difficulty of the content and has been changed to purely affect the content in the maps of the Atlas. It's just saying the Atlas tree changed as a result. Existing simulacrums, breachstones, and audience of the kings can be right-clicked to grant 100 of the relevant splinter. They can no longer be used in the Realm Gate. So don't do that, by the way. Don't do that. Those are now collectible. Don't do that. Just quick tip. Keep those. You can never get another one of them. The Arbiter of Ash boss fight is now a static difficulty encounter with infinite portals. Previously only infinite portals at difficulty 0. The rewards of this fight now match the previous difficulty 4 rewards. The Arbiter of Ash Atlas passive tree skill has been removed, and some of the bonuses have become inherent to the Arbiter of Ash's drops. Good. Added a Uber version of the Arbiter of Ash boss fight, which requires the new Calamity fragments to access. These are obtained from Citadel bosses, but only once you've allocated the maximum number of points in your boss Atlas passive tree, ensuring those Citadels are at their highest difficulty. Acquiring map boss Atlas passive points has been adjusted. These are now obtained by slaying a map boss in an area where the level is 79 or higher, map has at least 6 modifiers. Slaying a map boss in an area at 80 or higher, 6 modifiers. Slaying an anomaly map boss, 79 or higher, 6 mods. 79 or 6 mods in a Slaying Citadel map. Completing the Pinnacle of Flame quest. Olroth, Origin of the Fall, no longer spawns in logbooks. Mysterious anomalies can now appear on the Atlas. Modifiers of Waystones has been reworked. Now every modifier comes with a downside. Sad egg. Monsters deal 20% of damage as extra cold, a specific upside, and some amount of additional Waystone drop chance. Downside modifiers have been made weaker to account for the ability to have more present than before. I feel like that's worded weirdly. Be more present? Unidentified corrupted Waystones can now be used to access a corrupted nexus. Waystones can no longer have greater than 8 mods when corrupted. Items found in very high level areas that can have random quality can now have the 30% quality. Cannot apply to more than 20% quality. Oh, quality currency still doesn't go above 20%. Gotcha. Items that can have a maximum of 2 sockets now have a very low chance of generating with 3 sockets in high tier maps. Okay. That's definitely a reason to keep playing. Items that have a maximum of 1 socket now have a very low chance of generating with 2 sockets in high tier maps. The Abyss map has been renamed to Marrow. Like bone marrow. Atlas passive tree. I don't know. What else is Marrow usually used in reference of? Atlas passive tree changes. The detailed records expedition notable passive skill tree now provides +1 to level expedition books found in your maps. It's getting a little bit of a buff. It no longer provides 30% increased quantity of logbooks dropped by runic monsters in your maps. I think people may have preferred the quantity. I don't know. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. People might have preferred the quantity. The He Approaches Ritual notable passive skill now provides revived monsters from Ritual Atlas in your maps. Have 40% increased chance, previously 20% as a buff. It no longer causes rituals in your maps have 30% increased chance to contain an audience with the king. Okay, so it's rarer, but now it has increased revived monsters. rarity, I guess. I don't know. I don't really understand the change. You're not going to be getting as many audience with the kings, but now the altars give you more magic and rare monsters? Oh, I don't really know if that's what I would want if I were speccing into that Atlas tree. Essence rework. Essences now have 4 tiers. Lesser, normal, greater, and perfect. Instead of adding a modifier of a certain tag, essences now have a specific modifier, depending on the tier of essence and the type of it being applied to. Lesser, normal, and greater essences can upgrade a magic to rare, adding a guaranteed modifier. Perfect essences and essences obtained through corruption remove a modifier and augment a rare item with a new guaranteed mod. Gamba added 7 new types of essences. Essences of Torment have been renamed to Essences of Abrasion. Essences of Hysteria now augments different guaranteed modifiers based on the type of item it is applied to. Essence buffs. Let's go. General improvements. Unique strongboxes now have their own unique minimap icons. I love that. I really love that. Added a minimap icon to the Rain Festival Beetle monster. Big bug. Delwyn no longer appears alongside Asmarian Wisps during the campaign after the first time you encounter him. But Delwyn was a homie. Why not? I'll miss you, Delwyn. Asmari spirits now start appearing from hunting grounds and beyond instead of in the Grellwood. Skill and persistent buff gems now sell to vendors for gold based on their level and quality. The hooded one can no longer be placed in your hideout. You're still able to identify items from him in towns. Doriani will continue to serve as the source of identifying. Okay, I guess that's fair. Redundancy. Certain boss arena entrances no longer have a teleport for party members to enter after the fight has started. These players can instead just walk in. You are now able to log directly into town or hideout by holding control while selecting a character, or left trigger plus A/X when using a controller. That's really cool. I love that. So you can control click to log into your hideout now? That's awesome. You can now use checkpoints to warp the waypoint in an area as well as other checkpoints. Omens can now stack with a maximum stack size of 10. Orbs of Chance has received new art. Nice. Uncut skill, support, and reservation gems can now be traded through the currency exchange. Party members can no longer fruitlessly attempt to open expedition portals. NVIDIA Reflex has been re-enabled. Water break. Woo. Player changes. In a weak burp. When holding down the dodge roll button, your character will no longer go into a sprint after they finish the roll. Oh, will now go into a sprint. Sprint is available on all character classes, and there is no limitation to how long you can sprint for. No limitation? Where's my stamina? Where's my stamina? What am I, superhuman? Oh my gosh, no stamina? What? Come on! Primary purpose of this sprint feature is to make navigating areas faster when out of combat, though if you do take a hit while sprinting, you will fall to the ground, because the ground is so slippery. You can no longer socket multiple copies of the same skill gem into your main skill sockets. Skills not granted by gems and skills socketed into persistent buff skill gems do not count towards this limit. You can still have multiple copies of specters or tamed beasts, but only one of each kind of monster. So you can't have just a bunch of the same one. That stinks. Spectre Andy's in shambles. Attribute requirements on all equipment items have been lowered, particularly at endgame. Endgame base types, on average, have around 20 to 25% less attribute requirements. Attribute requirements on skill gems have been lowered, particularly at endgame. Endgame skill gems, on average, have been around 20 to 25% less attribute requirements. It needed to happen. It may even still need to happen a little bit more, But we're in line with PoE 1 right now. We're in line with PoE 1 in terms of, you know, at the upper echelon of attribute requirements for skill gems, it's going to hit the about 155 mark. I think they have them at 157 in PoE 2. I could be wrong. I don't know the specific number, but yeah, they were way too high before. Fire damage no longer inherently has a chance to ignite. What about critical strikes? Instead, it inflicts flammability on the enemy based on the damage dealt. Flammability is a debuff that lasts for 4 seconds and grants all fire damage against the enemy a chance to ignite the enemy equal to their flammability magnitude. What? I thought it was about to get the shock treatment as I was reading it. I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is awesome. This is exactly what other elements need to compete with shock, is they need like their own form of shock almost. But then I read it and it was like, wait, so you're taking away ignite, and then you're making it a debuff for ignite? Yeah, I don't. What is the point of that? I don't understand. That feels like unnecessarily complicated. Multiple hits can stack up flammability independently, meaning that a target can be hit frequently and or hard enough will consistently have 100% chance to be ignited. Effects which don't hit but ignite targets as though they did, such as from incinerate or ignited ground, also inflict flammability, but are not able to ignite targets until the target has 100% flammability. I feel like this is actually really useful information right there, but again, what do I know? Anything that removes, consumes, or grants immunity to ignite does the same for flammability. These changes do not affect how ignite itself functions, or is calculated once it has been applied. Sure sounds like it does. It sure sounds like it does. These changes also apply to any other non-fire damage that becomes capable of lightning and to enemies. Some enemies, oh, igniting, I said lightning. Some enemies deal non-ignite fire damage over time, which is not affected by these changes. The Arcane Surge buff now grants 15% increased cast speed instead of 10% more cast speed. Sag. But I like 10% more cast speed instead of increased cast speed. Shock now lasts 8 seconds on non-players by default. I'm so itchy right now, I don't know why. Previously 4 seconds. It still lasts 4 seconds on players. A buff? A buff for Shock Andes? Sure. Keep buffing Shock and then do whatever this weird thing is with Ignite. Stop buffing Shock! Oh, come on! why does the top right of the tree keep getting better, and now Shock is getting better? What's happening? This is just funny at this point. Chill now lasts 8 seconds on non-players by default. Previously 2 seconds. That's a huge buff. It still lasts 2 seconds on players. Chills on any target are now discarded if their magnitude is less than 30%. Previously 5%. Honestly, chill is a nightmare for melee. It is such a nightmare. Overflow effects on life, mana, and energy shield can now overflow the maximum by up to 1.5 times, from 2 times. Small nerf? Maybe, I mean, it's actually not that small. It's actually kind of a big numerical difference when you have only got 2. Light stun chance of less than 15% are now treated as 0%, previously described as less than 10%, but actually less than 20% for monsters being stunned and less than 12% for players being stunned. Is this for the player? So, okay, so less than 12% will be treated as 0. For monsters, it's 15%. I think. I don't know if I'm reading that right. Elemental Explosion has 15% less effect on magic monsters, 30% less effect on rare monsters, and 50% less effect on unique monsters. I didn't think it was too strong, but whatever. See if it needs a buff in the near future. Unarmed attacks now have a base critical strike chance of 5%. Previously none. What? They completely forgore unarmed? Could you even punch before? I never tried. Glory now decays if you haven't gained any for 15 seconds. Previously 30 seconds. Glory got nerfed, dude? What? Oil ground's duration is now refreshed when it catches fire. Gaining guard will, while you already have guard, no longer replaces the existing guard buff if the new amount of guard you would gain would be lower than that what you already had. It's like a word puzzle. Instead of the duration of the existing guard buff is extended proportional to the amount of guard in the new buff compared to the old buff. The amount of guard? Why doesn't it just renew the duration? What? Am I too stupid to read patch notes? Nobody answer that. If you answer that, you're in trouble. Ice crystals will now instantly shatter from hits that would consume freeze. As this is now default behavior, Glacial Cascade and Fragmentation rounds no longer specifically call out this behavior. This is a really big buff for cold skills, and I think many people are going to now be enjoying those builds. Added a new mechanic called Elemental Infusion that many elemental spells interact with. Some skills create infusions of a specific element as remnants on the ground, which can be picked up to grant you the infusion. Other skills can consume infusions of a specific type to grant additional bonuses depending on the skill. Some skills consume infusions that match the skill's elemental type, while others have cross-elemental infusions. This is just kind of like more combo gameplay, and referencing some of the other infusion changes that we were reading about earlier. The following have been renamed to avoid confusion. Amazon's infused weapon skill has been renamed to Elemental Surge. Spire of Ire's Chaotic Infusion unique skill has been renamed to Chaotic Surge. The Charge Infusion skill has been renamed to Charge Regulation. Reloading a crossbow and switching crossbow ammunition no longer reduces the player's movement speed. Blocking is no longer limited to strikes and projectiles by default. All hits that are not specifically unblockable with the red flash can be blocked. Ah, why is my nose bothering me so much? I just wanted to give my cat some attention. Lay with him for a little bit. Am I allergic? Raise shield and parry now require you to face the enemy that is hitting you. Rather than the direction from which the hit originates, some monster skills for which directionality isn't clear have been changed to be blockable from any direction using these skills. Okay, I appreciate that. Though there is a change we're about to read that I think is controversial. Player, minion, and monster base maximum block chance is now 15%. Oh! There it is. There it is, dude. Previously 75%. This is kind of big. This is kind of big. Yeah. I'm just gonna move on. I'm not gonna say anything. I won't say anything. If I speak, I'm in trouble. Effects which set a maximum for volatility now properly do so instead of being additive with a default cap of 200. Okay, I'll talk about it, alright? I'll talk about it. I can't ignore it any longer. This is a warrior nerf. Why are we nerfing warriors? Why have you done this? This is... I don't know. I know that armor got buffed a little bit, but like... Oh, come on, dude. You gotta be kidding me. I'm sorry for yawning. It's not out of boredom, I'm just up way too late. Effects which... We already read that one. Players now gain +6 to accuracy rating per level. Previously +3, and each point of dexterity now grants +6 to accuracy, previously +5. The accuracy fall-off penalty now linearly interpolates from 2 meters down to 12 meters, the maximum penalty being 90% less accuracy rating at distances of 9 meters or further. Previously there was no maximum, and at 14 meters you had 100% less accuracy rating. This is a big melee buff. This is a big melee buff. At real melee, you will essentially not need accuracy. Player minions now always hit with their attacks. Big minion buff right there. But if minions are still stupid, it might not matter. Player projectile skills now fire a minimum of 1 projectile, even if they should fire 0. Okay. Swapping weapons is now instant. Love it. Love it. Absolutely fantastic change. Should have always been that way, but this is absolutely fantastic that it is now that way. All charge-consuming skills now pause their corresponding charge's duration while in use. Elemental damage recouped as life and physical damage recouped as life now display in the life section of the character panel. Clarified on the stun keyword that monster melee damage has 33% more light stun chance and heavy stun buildup. And a monster physical, it's just a clarification. Updated the ice crystal keyword to clarify, more clarifications. Updated the keyword to include MAME in its base duration. Ascendancy changes. This is the juicy bit. There's probably a bunch more juicy information down below. This is a massive patch note. I don't know if you guys noticed. I don't know if you can see it on the side, but I've still got a lot of reading to do. I'm going to take another drink of water. I can feel myself getting dehydrated. Oh, that was a much better one. Much better. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I got a tissue, I picked my nose, and for some reason it's still just bothering me, so maybe it's like a nervous tick or something. Ascendancy changes. Warbringer. The Ascendancy Call notable passive skill now grants +1 maximum totems. Ancestral Spirit skills granted by the notable passive skill no longer grants minions from skills that have 1% increased accuracy rating per 3 of your dexterity. 1% increased attack speed per 3 of your dexterity. Very nice. That's certainly a buff. Great Wolf's Howl notable has been removed, and the Warcaller's Bellow notable now also provide the ignore cooldowns benefit. Very nice. That's a huge buff. Brinley's Training notable passive skill now grants gain 35% base crit chance to block from equipped shield instead of the shield's value, previously 40%. Small nerf. Turtle Charm notable no longer grants 25% less block chance or can block damage from all hits while shield is not raised. Instead, it now provides you take 30% of damage from blocked hits and maximum block chance is 75%. A mandatory node, but interesting that now only Warrior can do 75% block. I find that interesting. So, kind of cool. Stacks of Jade granted by the Jade Heritage notable passive skill no longer become lost when taking physical damage from a hit. Cool. Quality of life. Ancestral Spirits of the Answered Call notable no longer have also been improved. They now appear faster and start using skills sooner. Cool. Ancestral Jade Hulk no longer charges, instead uses a war cry to buff allies with 50% increased damage. Their Leap Slam has also been improved. It's a buff skill now. Ancestral Jade Caster has had its spellcasting range increased. The Pinning Jade Storm has had its area of effect increased, and the delay between it forming and exploding has been reduced. Warhorn's buff and Horn Slam have had their area of effect and duration increased. Ancestral Spirit Turtle's aura has had its area of effect increased. Smith of Kitava. I heard this one got nerfed. The flowing metal passive skill now causes body armor to grant 50% of armor to also apply to elemental damage from hits. Previously caused body armor to grant 5% to maximum fire resistance. Is this in addition to the armor changes, or is this what they're talking about? I'm not sure. The Leather Bindings notable passive skill now causes body armor to regenerate 3% of maximum life per second. Previously 5%. Ooh, kind of a nerf there. Manifest Weapon skill granted by the Living Weapon notable passive skill no longer grants minions from the skill have increased accuracy rating per 3 of dexterity. Its attack speed is the same change. Small passive skill regarding fire resistance now have values of 8%, previously 15%. Nerf. Small passive skill prior to Living Weapon now grants 5% increased strength instead of minions deal 20% increased damage. I think that's a nerf. Because if it's on its way to a minion thing, then I don't know. I didn't play enough of Smith of Kitava to really comment on all these changes, but it's obviously it got nerfed a couple times. Gemling Legionnaire. The advanced thaumaturgy notable passive skill no longer grants 30% less cost of skill, or skill gems have 30% more attribute requirements. It now grants the thaumaturgical dynamism buff, which while active grants you to passively generate a power frenzy or endurance charge once every 8 seconds. That's really powerful. The type of charge you generate is determined by the attribute requirements of your socketed skill gems. The higher the total strength requirement total of your socketed skill gems, the more likely you will be to generate an endurance charge. Probably vice versa. Higher total dexterity. Yep, okay. That sounds really cool. That sounds really, really cool. Gem studded notable passive skill no longer grants you use of each type of support gem in an additional time in different skills. Instead, it now provides each color of socketed gem that is most numerous gain. Red. Hits gain you have no critical damage bonus. Oh, hits against you. Wow. That's so good. That's so good. Skills have 30% less cost. Also really good. 40% less movement speed penalty while from using skills while moving. Probably the least popular option, in all honesty. I'd be willing to bet that that's the least popular option. Tactician. The Cannon's Ready notable passive skill now also provides +1 to maximum number of totems. Nice. Totem buffs. Right where we want the notable passive skill also grants projectile damage builds pin. Buff. Polish the Gear notable passive skill now provides gain deflection rating equal to 20% of armor and no longer grants 100% of armor as extra stun threshold. Actual defenses, always appreciated. The Suppressing Fire notable passive skill now provides 40% more immobilization buildup instead of projectile damage builds pen. This is a change, but I'm not quite able to visualize it. Supporting Fire skill granted by the Unleash Hell notable passive skill no longer grants minions from the skill have 1% increased accuracy rating per 3 of your dexterity. Instead, minions from the skill now have 1% increased area of effect per 3 of your dexterity. Area of effect, that's not attack speed, so certainly different. But I think the area of effect is actually much more appreciated because this is a very AoE skill. So can it shotgun? The Death from Above command or from supporting fire now deals approximately 3 times more damage at all gem levels. Wow. Wow. 3 times more damage at all gem levels. Whoever pays best notable passive skill now provides there is no limit on the number of banners you can place, and banners gain 5 glory per second instead of can place multiple banners. Added a new, 5 glory per second, that's actually really nice. Holy quality of life. If you're going to enjoy a banner, probably do it on a tactician. Added a new strategic embarkment notable passive skill which requires cannons ready. This causes your totems to grant embarkment auras to players when placed, which grant a different effect depending on the variety of totem. Ancestral warrior totems grant 40% increased glory generation. That's also pretty nice. This is a tactician change? Artillery ballista grants 40% increased immobilization buildup. Dark energy grants 40% increased damage over time. Mortar cannon grants 15% of damage gained as extra fire. Siege ballista grants 50% increase of damage against immobilized enemies. Shockwave totem grants 30% increased area of effect. That's pretty cool. That's a lot of the totem build, dude. Tactician is definitely totem build. Or yeah, I don't know. That tactician is really interesting now. Mercenary is getting a huge amount of things to try out this time around. Ritualist. As the Whispers. Ask notable passive skill has been removed in the Atlas, and the As Whispers demand notable now also grants the Ritual Sacrifice skill. Cool. Condense it. I love it. The Wildwood Persistence notable passive skill now grants 10% increased life recovery rate per 5% missing unreserved life. That's a buff, yeah. Ritualist definitely needed some love. We'll see if it's enough. I think that this is one of the coolest, most thematic ascendancies. But is the extra ring worth it? Is the extra amulet or whatever it is? I'm pretty sure it's a ring. I just don't know. I don't know if Ritualist is competitive enough. Maybe if you could use the Ritual Sacrifice like quickly, right? If it didn't have a slow animation and you could just like chain it, right? Come into some sort of like a recovery build so that you can just keep chaining all of the buffs that you want. I think that would be really cool. The critical strike notable passive skill now has gained an additional critical chance equal to 15% of excess chance to hit with attacks. Previously 25%. Oh, big nerf. It no longer specifies it ignores hobble on the target. The elemental surge notable passive skill now grants 3 charges when consuming a power, frenzy, or endurance charge. So I would say that's an Amazon nerf. But a small buff for the elemental infusions that they want people to play around with. Let me know down below if you understood what I was saying. Pathfinder, the sustainable practices notable passive skill now grants 50% of the evasion rating, also grants elemental damage reduction, previously 30%. Buff. Poisonous concoction granted by the poisonous concoction notable passive skill has been renamed to acidic concoction. It's different. It's different, damn it. This concoction consumes charges from your mana flask to throw a flask that explodes, dealing physical attack damage in an area. Okay. That's going to take away your mana flask charges now. The thrown flask consumes poison on hit to cause an acidic burst, which deals damage based on the highest expected remaining damage of the poison on the target. Acidic concoction and acidic burst cannot poison. Acidic burst deals unscalable physical damage equal to 150% of the expected remaining damage of the consumed poison and has 30% more area of effect per poison affecting the enemy. It's a pretty big change. I wasn't playing Pathfinder before though, so I'm not really hung up about it. Lots of concoction changes. Fulminating concoction now grants or no longer inflicts lightning exposure. It has 50% more shock effect. Quality now grants 40% more chance to shock. I feel like that's a nerf. Shattering Concoction, granted by Shattering Concoction, notable passive skill, now inflicts elemental exposure on hit instead of just cold exposure. Now freezes enemies on hit that are primed for freeze. Quality now grants 0 to 20% increased freeze duration instead of 20% increased effective cold exposure. That's a nerf, I'd say. I'd say that's a nerf. Ugh. At least it's out of me now. No more sneezing. Me. Bleeding Concoction, granted by the Bleeding Concoction notable passive skill choice, no longer has 200% more magnitude of bleeding inflicted. Now aggravates bleeding on targets hit. Explosive Concoction, granted by the Explosive Concoction notable passive skill choice, no longer has 200% more magnitude of ignite inflicted, and no longer inflicts fire exposure on hit. Holy cow, that's a big nerf. Now fires up to 4 additional mini flash projectiles at ignited enemies. I don't know, that sounds kind of interesting. You're throwing like a bunch of smaller projectiles now, like spamming them. That one could be fun to play around with. That sounds like a fun change. Explosive Concoction quality no longer grants effective fire exposure, instead granting up to 2 additional mini flash projectiles thrown at the ignited enemies, instead of 20% increased fire exposure effect. Deadeye. The Avidity notable passive skill no longer grants 30% chance to gain maximum frenzy charges when you gain a frenzy charge. Instead, it grants 50% chance to gain an additional frenzy charge. The Called Shots notable passive skill no longer lets you apply an additional mark. Instead, it causes your projectiles to chain to marked enemies and grants the new Called Shots meta skill that repeatedly marks enemies near you, bypassing your mark limit. Oh, that's pretty cool. Some like AoE quality of life for single target skills maybe there. The Eagle Eye's notable passive skills has been renamed to Bullseye. No longer removes the distance-based accuracy penalty. Instead, it applies 10 stacks of critical weakness to enemies when you consume a mark on them. So accuracy more of a problem, but to deal more damage. Invoker, the elemental expression skill granted by the Scatter Them to the Wind's notable passive skill tree now deals that damage instead of the old damage. It's a buff. That damage, that damage, that's a buff. Yeah, it's just, they buffed Invoker. Okay. Alright. Meditate skill granted by the Faith as a choice notable passive skill now also has a cooldown of 7 to 5.1 seconds at gym levels 1 to 20. Meditate now provides 24 through 100% more energy shield recharge rate at gym levels 1 through 20, previously 0 through 28%. Sniffa. Acolyte of Chayula. This is going to be an interesting read. The reality rending notable has been renamed to Sap of Nightmares and no longer grants chance to gain a percentage of damage with hits as extra chaos. They took away the best node? What? Instead, it now grants leech covers based on chaos damage as well as physical damage. What? Reality rending was like their best node. Okay, I'm really interested to read the rest of this now. The lucid dreaming notable passive no longer provides any benefits itself, instead now being a multi-choice notable with the following choices. Choice of life. All flames of Chayula you manifest are red. Choice of mana. All flames of Chayula you manifest are blue. Or choice of power. All flames of Chayula you manifest are purple. The End of the Breach skill, granted by Waking Dream notable passive skill, now grants remnants spawned by supported skills have 0 through 50% increased effect. Quality now provides 10 or 0 through 15% increased effect of remnants. Previously, a flame of Chayula manifests nearby for 0. Okay. So they want you to do the flames, it sounds like, and they want you to choose now. The Grasp of the Void notable passive skill has been renamed to Illusory Void and no longer requires Embrace the Darkness. It no longer provides gain 1% of extra chaos damage per 20 unreserved darkness and instead grants a new skill, Void Illusion. What does it do? The Embrace of the Darkness notable passive has a reservation lasts for 5 seconds, previously 10. I don't know if that's a buff or a nerf. The Inner Silence. What is Void Illusion? Hello? They're just going to act like they didn't say that? Also, lol W, they're taking away even more damage from them. They're taking away even more damage. Why? They took away 2 damage nodes. The Embrace of the Darkness notable passive skill now has Darkness Reservation. We read that. The Inner Silence notable passive skill has been renamed to Deepening Shadows and no longer grants 50% reduced Darkness Reservation. Instead, it grants 1% increased maximum darkness per 1% chaos resistance. The Ravenous Doubts notable passive skill has been renamed to Inner Turmoil and no longer grants Mana Leech recovers based on other damage types as well as physical damage. Instead, it now grants 1 volatility on inflicting elemental ailment and take no damage from volatility. The Consuming Questions notable has been renamed to Unraveling and no longer grants you cannot recharge energy shield or mana leech effects also recover energy shield. Instead, it now grants chaos damage from hits, also contributes to ignite chance, magnitude, build, freeze up, shock chance, changing every 2 seconds. Ew, it's rotating. What have they done? What did I just read? What did I just read? This is gonna need. I'm gonna have to see how this plays out. All right, I'm not gonna rag on it just yet. But I will say they kind of took the 2 best parts of this Ascendancy and got rid of it for some sussy replacements. Definitely some sussy replacements. So we're just gonna have to see how this one ends up playing out because it sounds like it's all hinging on lucid dreaming now and collecting the flames for gaining power. Because all the other gain damage is gone. And they want you to do, like, this consuming questions thing now, I guess. I don't know. Didn't play Acolyte of Chayula before because didn't really seem up my alley, but now it definitely isn't. I would say definitely not something I'm gonna be trying. It's just too sounded too weird now. I don't know. Sound a little too weird. Blood Mage. The small life passive skill prior to Sanguimancy has been removed. It's gone. Sanguimancy notable passive skill is now free to allocate. Life Remnant skill it grants now spawns a remnant on hitting a target instead of on critically striking. Blood Mage buffs. Love it. The Gore Spike passive skill now grants 1% increased critical damage per 50 life, previously 40, small nerf, and was swapped locations for the Sunder Flesh notable passive skill. Honestly, the metric system is pretty cool. Metric system's pretty cool. That's a great measurement that they chose right there. The Between the Cracks notable passive skill has been renamed to Sanguine Tides and no longer provides critical hits, ignore monster armor. Instead, it now provides gain 1 life flask charge per 4% life spent, 50% life rice recovery from flasks. It also now has when your life flask reaches full charges, 40% of its charges are consumed, gain 1% of damage as physical damage for 3 seconds per charge consumed this way. That's weird. The Open Sore's notable passive skill has been renamed to Whispers of the Flesh and no longer grants your curses have infinite duration. Instead, it now grants enemies affected by your curses have at least 15% of life reserved. Another weird one, but it's like a reverse culling strike, almost. Not going to kill them faster, but it will like get you there a little bit more quickly. I said that in a terrible way, but right, it's not going to execute them. There we go. That's what it won't do. It'll get you there quickly to the kill, but it won't execute it for you. So you just skip the last part of the fight. The Infernal Hound, granted by the Loyal Hellhound notable passive skill, now ignites enemies within 2.5 meters. Is it going to be a defensive buff again? Pyromantic Pact notable passive skill now grants Infernal Flame equal to twice your mana, but causes you to lose 25% of your Infernal Flame per second if you haven't gained any in the last 2 seconds. Previously 50%. That's a buff. Demon Form, granted by the Demonic Possession notable skill, no longer disables your weapon and has its own weapon set. It no longer grants level of all spell skills while in demon form or increased spell damage per demon flame. It now grants 3% more spell damage per demon flame, and quality now provides 0 through 10% increased cast speed while in demon form. Previously had no quality. Life loss per second from demon flame is now lower beyond skill gem 20. You had to do some weird stuff before to play demon form. It was like strong, but you had to like ramp. You had to ramp for a long time. Lich. The Dominion over Flesh notable passive skill has been renamed to Incessant Cacophony. It now grants your curses have infinite duration instead of your curses can affect hexproof enemies. The Eldritch Empower notable passive skill no longer provides non-channeling spells, cost an additional 3% of maximum energy shield, 30% more damage, or spending energy shield does not interrupt recharge. Instead, sorry I'm so sniffy. I guess I've got something. Instead, it now provides spells deal 30% more damage when sacrificing energy shield, sacrifice 5% of maximum energy shield when you cast a spell, and sacrificing energy shield does not interrupt recharge. I guess that's kind of better. It's like a more general application of the more damage as long as you're sacrificing energy shield. I vibe with it. I like that change. The Price of Power notable passive skill no longer grants non-channeling spells consume a power charge if able to deal 25% more damage. Instead, it now provides consume a power charge if able to deal 40% more damage. What? What does that mean? If able to deal 25% more damage? Is this just like a channeling? It says non-channeling. I don't really understand that. So I guess I'm just not a Lich player. Chronomancer, the Flood of Echoes notable passive skill has been renamed to Inevitability. It no longer grants the Unleash skill, it instead now grants the new skill Inevitable Agony, which curses all targets in an area after a short delay, causing a portion of damage they take from hits to be stored in the curse debuff. When the debuff's duration expires, they take that stored damage again all at once. Chronomancer kind of getting a buff there. They're kind of getting a buff. The Quicksand Hourglass notable passive skill no longer grants every 10 seconds gain 50% more cast speed for 5 seconds. Instead, it now grants Sands of Time, which grants 60% cast speed, scaling down to 1% over 10 seconds, at which point it will then scale back up to 60%. Sands of Time also grants 1% increased area of effect, scaling up to 60% over 10 seconds, at which it will then scale back down to 1%. That's pretty cool. It's kind of like a ramping. I like that. Whether or not it's useful, I'm sure somebody will be trying it out. Stormweaver. The Elemental Storm skill granted by the Tempest Caller notable passive skill has had its cooldown lowered to 3 seconds at all levels, previously 5. The Rain Dancer notable passive skill has been renamed to Multiplying Squalls and no longer provides 150% more cooldown recovery rate from Elemental Storm. Instead, it now provides +1 limit for elemental skills. Is this just something I'm too, not sorceress to understand? The Force of Will notable passive skill no longer grants 1% increased effective arcane surge on you per 25% maximum, 25 maximum mana, sorry, not 25% maximum. Instead, it grants 20% of damage taken from hits from mana before life and 20% increased magnitude of arcane surge on you per 10% missing mana. Kinda useful. Definitely useful for Archmage builds. Or mana stacking builds. Is Archmage even a thing in PoE 2 yet? The Scouring Winds notable passive skill has been renamed to Storm's Recollection and no longer grants exposure you inflict, lowers affected monsters' resistance by an additional 12%. Instead, it now grants remnants you create reappear 3 seconds after being collected. Yeah, I don't really understand the difference between what it was and what it is now. The Heart of the Storm notable passive skill has been renamed to Refracting Infusion and no longer grants 40% of elemental damage taken recouped as energy shield. Instead, it now provides 50% chance when collecting an elemental infusion to gain another different elemental infusion. Elemental Infusion League! You get an elemental infusion, and you get an elemental infusion, and you get an elemental infusion. You all get elemental infusions! Ah, ha, ha, ha. Okay. Enough being crazy. Passive skill tree changes. The Elemental Equilibrium Keystone passive skill has been redesigned. It now causes infusion remnants you create to be random elements. The Eternal Youth Keystone passive skill no longer causes your life flasks to recover energy shield instead, and now causes your life flasks to have 50% less recovery. The Giant's Blood Keystone passive skill now halves the amount of life granted by strength. What? Huh? Excuse me? The Eternal Youth Keystone passive no longer causes your life flasks to recover energy shield, instead now causes your life flasks to recover 50% less. What is this? How are life builds getting nerfed? Stop it. Get some help. What is happening? I know Giant's Blood was like a popular choice, but I don't like it. I don't like that change one bit. No. The Glancing Blows Keystone passive skill now provides chance to evade is unlucky and chance to deflect is lucky. It no longer provides block chances doubled, or you take 50% of damage from blocked hits. I think that'll result in someone trying it out. I don't know if it's actually good, but deflect will be on some people's minds, and I don't know. It's like an avoidance layer versus like maybe you're a build who has enough of avoidance layer and you need to like cap out your deflect chance or something. The Resolute Technique Keystone passive skill now grants accuracy rating is doubled instead of your hits cannot be evaded. That seems like a buff. Maybe I'm wrong. Actually, no, it's not. That's a nerf. Because it doesn't say anything else about like how Resolute Technique in PoE 1 says you can't like critically strike or whatever. Added 8 new clusters between the warrior and witch sorcerer's areas of the passive tree. Added 15 new clusters to the warrior area. 23 new clusters to the mercenary area. 17 new clusters to the ranger huntress area. 17 new clusters to the monk area. 25 new clusters to the witch and sorceress area. Source of increased area of effect have been lowered by approximately 25%. No! Some of those big AoE builds were so cool. Sources of daze buildup have been replaced with the chance to daze on hit with adjusted value. Cool. Love a little bit of differentiation. Not everything needs to be a buildup ailment. Sources of reduced reservation of skills instead now grant increased reservation efficiency. And that's kind of like a consistency change, I feel like, between PoE 1 and PoE 2. Many existing clusters have also received updates. These changes may result in your existing passive tree being forcefully refunded if you have allocated those nodes around the areas where the layout has changed. A small attribute passive skill has been removed on all of the outward highways between class starting locations. Skill changes. Alright. I think this is going to be a big section. Look at all of this. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Base damage scaling of all player, spell, and secondary damage skills has been tweaked to scale better into the late game. Generally speaking, spells that do not have damage number changes called out below will have near identical base damage. At lower levels, roughly 5% more damage at gem level 20 and roughly 20% more damage at level 30. Okay. So if it's not mentioned, it doesn't mean it hasn't been changed. Mana cost growth of all skills has been rebalanced. Generally speaking, skills have similar mana costs at low gem levels, essentially slightly higher mana costs at some intermediate gem levels, and lower mana costs, sometimes dramatically lower, at gem levels higher than level 20. Good. Banners no longer gain valor, but instead generate glory when you attack enemies. They all require 200 glory to place. Unlike other glory-based skills, banners gain glory when banner is placed. While I'm really jumbling these words. All sources of banner valor gained have been replaced with banner glory generated. It's not valor, it's glory, darn it. Sorry, I got some indigestion. Just hurts. Her skills and skills that apply elemental exposure now can't apply those debuffs to enemies that are significantly higher level than the skill zone level requirement. This requirement is fairly lenient and disappears completely by high gem levels. Blink, Convalescence, and Sacrifice can no longer be activated in specific weapon sets. They are now required to be active in both weapon sets and will fail to activate if this is not possible. Higher rarity enemies are now less affected by curses. Curses have 15% less effect on magic monsters, 30% less effect on rare monsters, and 50% less effect on unique monsters. But why? Movement speed penalty inflicted by skills that can be used while moving now begins to fall off slightly more quickly while using the skill. I am yawning a lot. It might be bedtime soon. Spirit cost of specters has been adjusted such that specters with high spirit costs are generally cheaper, while some of the cheaper specters are now more costly. Specters tamed beasts now deal 25% more damage. Instant skills such as Unbound Avatar are usable on the row amount. That's pretty cool. Mark skills are no longer spells. Reservation skills have reduced reservation with quality, now have increased reservation efficiency. It's just a wording change, really. Killing Palm, Staggering Palm, Shattering Palm, Hand of Cholula, and Frozen Locust now deal damage based on your equipped quarterstaff. They no longer have flat damage added. Palm Strikes no longer can be used with a quarterstaff by default. Without a quarterstaff by default, sorry. Shockwave Totem, Ancestral Warrior Totem, Artillery Ballista, Siege Ballista now use your equipped weapons. They no longer have their own flat damage, base critical chance, or base attack time. Ancestrally boosted slams now have 25% increased effect. Area of effect, previously 25%, a really small buff. We've also fixed a bug where the area of effect from the boosted slams was described as multiplicative instead of additive. Following skills found as inherent skills on wands and staves now deal approximately 12% more damage from skill level 11 and onwards. Bone Blast, Chaos Bolt, Decompose, Firebolt, Freezing Shards, Lightning Bolt, Power Siphon, and Solar Orb. Cool. Ancestral Warrior Totem now have no limit. Socketed Mace skills now have... Really? That's pretty cool. Oh, maybe this is like... The totem doesn't have a limit, but players do? I don't know. I'll have to just try it out, I guess. Arc is now a projectile. It no longer causes explosions against shocked enemies and is no longer a payoff skill. It now chains 6 through 9 times from gem levels 5 through 20, previously 5 through 8. It no longer has 50% more shock magnitude and can now consume lightning infusion to chain an additional time and deal more damage. Now deals 2 through 39 damage. Okay, it got like a little bit of a buff. Archmage now has non-channeling spells gain 4% of damage as extra lightning damage for 100 maximum mana you have. Armor piercing rounds. Quality now provides 20%. Break 20% of armor, previously 30%. Nerf. Artillery Ballista has been renamed to Siege Ballista and now has a duration of 8 seconds, previously 16. Nerf. Nerf. Yeah, it just got nerfed. Ball Lightning can now consume a fire infusion to leave a trail of ignited ground and explode at the end of its travel. That's cool. Batter Shout. Explosion now deals 50% more damage against unique enemies. Zerk now grants 53 through 59% increased rage effect at gem levels. No longer grants physical leech. Bind Spectre quality now provides minions deal 20% more damage instead of 10% reduced reservation of summoning specters. More damage is probably really appreciated. But minions are also really restricted by reservation, so yet to be seen on if it's actually good. Using Blink no longer counts as dodge rolling. Now has a minimum gem level of 8, previously 14. Is this them just saying that they expect everyone to use Blink? Blood Hunt. Another yawn. Oh, no. Okay. Causes life loss rather than unscalable damage. Oh. Okay. I mean, does that mean it's scalable? Blood Hunt getting a big buff right there. Bone Offering. Spike duration is now 8 seconds, previously 5. That's a buff. Yeah, just all around buff for Bone Offering. Bone Shatter Shockwave now deals 50% more damage against unique enemies. Pretty big buff. Cast on Freeze, Cast on Shock, Cast on Ignite have been combined into a single gem. Cast on Elemental Ammon. Good. This gem requires 100 Spirit. Wow. Has a minimum level of 14 and combines the energy gain conditions of all 3 previous gems. Existing copies of the gems will be updated to cast on Elemental Ammons when you load the character or stash tab holding them. Chaos Bolt, granted by Withered Wand. Now inflicts 1 through 3 stacks of Withered for 4 seconds on hit. Gem levels 1 through 20. Okay, that's a pretty big reason to use one. Cluster Grenade, primary grenade attack damage is now 299. Okay, Cluster Grenade got a buff. Cold Snap has been reworked and renamed to Snap. Why not Cold Snap? What was wrong with Cold Snap? Can now be used on any orb spell or any frozen, shocked, or ignited enemy causing an explosion. Okay, I guess. Doesn't have to be cold damage anymore, then yeah, just call it Snap. Combat Frenzy, it looks like it got a buff. I would say this is a buff through that functionality difference. Combat Frenzy, quality now provides 0 through 10% chance to gain a charge, to gain an additional charge, previously 20%. Nerf. Why did that get nerfed? Comet now deals a little bit more damage. But a healthy amount more damage at higher levels. Big Comet glow up. Contagion, quality now provides contagion to additional enemies when cast instead of 100% maximum debuff damage bonus from spreading. I think that's a nerf. Dark Effigy quality now provides meters on impact radius instead of chance to inflict withered. That's just basically saying that it wants you to use the wand to apply your withered instead of relying on the effigy completely. The effigies were like a really popular choice. Defiance Banner, they probably still are going to be a popular choice, if you ask me. R now grants 30% more armor and evasion rating. Increased movement. It's a banner skill. Is anyone really going to be using this? Despair, Curse now inflicts minus 41 to minus 49 chaos resistance. Previously 20, 24. Wow, dude. That's a huge buff for Despair. That's a massive, massive buff. Detonating Arrow. Quality now provides 0 through 1 to maximum stages. Previously 0 through 2. It's a nerf. Quality now provides 0 through 20% chance for an additional shockwave instead of 0 to 20% increased cooldown recovery rate. Water. Flash charges per second. 60% more elemental ailment threshold. And now also grants 4% maximum all elemental resistances. I could see someone using this. Maybe the other one would be used for the movement speed, but I don't know. They're all like using the glory mechanic, and all these additional requirements just kind of like gum up gameplay and makes people less likely to choose it as something they want to include in their build. But this is certainly defensively valuable. The maximum elemental resistances. Earthquake. Jagged Ground's radius is now smaller, but you deal more damage. Earth Shatter. Quality now provides 6% more damage with hits for each spike instead of 0 through 3 to maximum spikes. More damage is definitely better. Detonation now also triggers existing spikes. Electrocuting Arrow. No longer a movement skill. Now shoots an arrow forward that explodes, applying its electrocuting rod to all enemies hit. Okay. Quality now causes 10% damage of extra lightning damage. Yeah, that's definitely different. I didn't know it was a movement skill. Am I thinking of the wrong ability? I might be. Elemental Sundering. Pulse can now consume up to 20 elements. Cold Explosion now does 40% more damage. The Cold is also now 100% more damage against unique enemies. This Cold was underperforming for Elemental Sundering. Ember Fusillade. Can now be infused with lightning to cause each ember in an entire fusillade to create a beam that chains lightning damage to enemies. The infusion is consumed when the fusillade fires all embers in that fusillade. Now has a minimum gem level of 9, previously 3. Emergency Reload. Now reloads all of your crossbow ammunition clips, previously just your most recent, and empowers each clip's ammunition to deal increased damage for its duration or until you extend all of your empowered bolts. Now has number of each clip's empowered bolt is equal to the maximum ammunition of the clip. I think that's a buff. Enfeeble! No longer has Curse makes non-unique targets deal 20 through 60% less damage, or Curse makes unique targets deals 10 through 16% less damage. Curse now makes targets deal 21 through 29% less damage. So it doesn't differentiate anymore, it's just cool. But then why do they make the other elemental curses or whatever differentiate? Wasn't there a curse that we just read that's like deciding whether it's a magic, rare, or unique monster and whether or not how much resistance it'll lower them? Or was that exposure? Escape Shot now creates ice fragments in its area of effect. These fragments explode. Additionally, you can also travel 6 meters back. That's a buff. Explosive Spear. Ignited ground created by Frenzy Charge Explosion now lasts 8 seconds instead of 4. Eye of Winter. When passing through an allied flame wall, the eye itself and now all the shards it subsequently released will receive the flame wall's added fire damage. Falling Thunder. Quality now provides 0 through 20% more damage per power charge consumed. Previously 10% chance and to not remove charges on use. More damage. That's what we want. Fangs of Frost. Explosion now causes 150% more freeze buff. Previously 50%. That's a really big buff. And then 9% more damage. Previously 6%. Fireball no longer creates secondary fireball projectiles by default. Instead, it can consume a fire infusion to do so. Boo. And has a minimum gem level of 3. They're really trying to push the infusion angle. Primary projectile and explosion. Okay. Is it a buff? Yeah, that's a pretty big buff. Previously 218. That's a really big buff. Firestorm now has a base radius of 2.8 meters and creates 1 bolt every 0.2 seconds. Previously every 0.1. No longer consumes ignite to create improved bolts. Instead, it can now consume every type of elemental infusion. Fire infusion causes the storm to double in size and create 3 times as many bolts. Cold and lightning infusions cause the storm to create additional cold and lightning bolts, respectively. That's pretty cool. If you didn't see this in the reveal, it looked really, really, really cool. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be giving this a try out with Spark and some other shenanigans. Flame Wall can now consume a lightning infusion to generate additional lightning damage to projectiles that passes through it, as well as the fire damage. No longer causes projectiles that pass through it to ignite enemies, now deals that damage per time. That sounds like a buff. Flammability, conductivity, hypothermia have been combined into a single gem. Elemental weakness, existing copies have been updated. Flicker Strike. Quality now provides 0 through 20% more damage per power charge consumed instead of 20% chance to not consume charges on use. That's a big old buff. That's a big old buff for Flicker Strike enjoyers. Fragmentation rounds. Explosion from frozen enemies now converts all physical damage to cold damage and will cause further explosions on any frozen enemies it hits. So this cannot propagate any further. It's not recursive. Explosion radius is now 2 meters, previously 1.8. Hits against frozen enemies now have 50% more damage against unique enemies. That's a reasonable buff. Frost Bomb now deals slightly less damage. A higher cooldown. And then a higher maximum elemental exposure through quality. So, oh no, that got nerfed too. Frost Bomb got nerfed. Frost Bomb got nerfed big time. Now deals 80% less damage. We're talking about Frost Wall. And the first 0.5 seconds of its duration. Okay, I guess they just don't want you spamming it on something. Base projectile speed has been lowered by 20% for Frostbolt. No longer leaves chilled ground as it travels. Instead, it chills as though dealing 100 through 195% more damage. Projectiles now deal less damage. I would say that's kind of a nerf. The chilled ground is like a huge defensive layer, whereas I don't know. I don't know. Right? Like this is less damage, and then there's like a mechanical change behind it as well, so I would say that's a nerf. Ice Crystal now deals 80% less damage in the first 0.5 seconds of its duration. Galvanic Shards ammunition no longer has 50% less reload speed, and now has 1 bolt loaded per clip, previously 5. Attack damage is 25. Okay, that's a buff. That's a buff. Yeah, it got buffed. Galvanic Shards got buffed. Gas Grenade no longer has special behavior causing it to detonate as soon as it stops bouncing. Instead, it strictly obeys its detonation time like other grenades. Glacial Bolt. Ice Crystals now have 50% more area of effective shattered. Ice Crystals now deal 80% damage in the first 0.5 seconds of their duration. They really don't want you like spamming those ice shards, is what I'm noticing. Glacial Cascade no longer has consumes freeze on enemies to deal 350% more damage. Bye 350% more damage. It now consumes freeze on non-unique enemies to deal 150% more and consumes freeze on unique enemies to deal 500% more damage. Holy cow! Burst radius is now 0.6 meters. That's a big old buff. Huge buff for Glacial Cascade. Hailstorm rounds. Bolts now fall in an expanding circle rather than overlapping with each other. Slapping. Now has an impact radius of 1 meter, previously 1.2. That's a nerf. It's basically saying it doesn't shotgun anymore. and then a lower radius. Minimum distance the bolts can land from the firing location. But it deals slightly more damage. I don't know. I would say this is a nerf. Hand of Chayula quality now provides increased duration of socketed gems. Instead of supported curses have increased magnitudes. That sucks. Herald of Thunder. Bolt impact radius is now 1 meter from 1.4. Hex Blast. Quality now provides 0 through 10% more damage per 1 second of remaining duration of removed curse instead of 0 through 20% more chaos damage. I think that's a buff. I think that's a buff for Hex Blast. No longer consumes fully broken armor. Instead of hitting a fully armor broken enemy will apply a debuff to that enemy, which causes your attack and hits against that enemy to deal additional physical damage equal to 5% of the physical damage dealt by the high velocity round that applied the debuff. Okay. I would say that that's like a functional buff. That's a functional buff for high velocity rounds. Because instead of consuming your broken armor, you're going to continue to benefit from it, and then you're going to get something else on top. Ice Nova can now consume a cold infusion to deal more damage and create an area of chilled ground. Ice Shards. Shards now deal 29 through 82% of attack damage at gem levels 5 through 20. Is this a buff? Yeah, that's a big buff. Big buff on Ice Shards. Incendiary Shot. Big buff on Incendiary Shot. Incinerate has been reworked. It now requires fuel gained by spending mana to use. It no longer has a mana cost itself, and no longer applies fire exposure. Its cast speed is fixed, and it gains stages every 0.25 seconds. Its cone length is now 5.8 meters. It now has 12 maximum stages, previously 8. It no longer creates burning ground by default. Now requires fuel gained by spending mana to use. What? What? Okay. Infernal Cry now empowers 1 attack per 10 enemy power in range, counting up to 50 power, previously 1 attack. Okay, so it's kind of like a functional change, a little bit of a benefit there. No longer has increased Warcry speed while empowered, now gains increased damage. Oh, that's a little bit of a nerf, I would say. But it's also like a standardization of it, so it's like in lower target situations it's going to be more beneficial, but in higher target situations it's not going to be as beneficial. Thanks for the follow. I'm still going to be reading though, so busy. Infernal Cries Combust now deals flat damage, a little bit of nerf on the flat damage. Hope you're having a great day. Quality now provides empowered attacks gain 0 through 10% of damage as fire damage, previously gained. I don't know how I feel about this. This one's kind of like back and forth. I think the standardization of the buff is definitely nice. And then the additional attacks is definitely nice. I don't know. I would say it's like a neutral change almost. It's both got upsides and downsides. Killing Palm now grants 1 power charge when culling a normal or magic monster, 2 when culling a rare monster, and 3 when culling a unique monster. Lightning Bolt, granted by Choir of the Storm, now correctly typed as a triggered skill. This means it will scale off of increases and reductions to triggered skill damage as well as other similar stats, and also means it will no longer be capable of generating energy to trigger other skills. Jung Ronin Shambles. Lightning Conduit no longer consumes shocks from targets hit, but now has a 6-second cooldown. Now deals 69 through 208 damage at gem level 13, previously 41. That's a buff. That's a buff. That's a big buff. 5% more damage. Yep. Lightning Conduit Enjoyers Rejoice. Lightning Rod. 20% chance to cause an additional burst on impact instead of 0.4 meters to burst radius. That's a big buff. Huge buff for the quality change there. Wow. Lightning Spear now fires secondary bolts at all levels. Previously 3 through 8 at gym levels. No longer deals more damage when consuming a frenzy charge. Why? Did it deserve that? I mean, Lightning Spear was really good. Lightning Spear was really good. So, we'll see. Living Bomb and Solar Orb have swapped places. Living Bomb is now a tier 5 elemental skill gem, while Solar Orb is an inherent skill to Pyrophyte staves. Existing items are not affected by this change. Living Bomb no longer explodes at the end of its duration. Instead, it explodes upon dealing sufficient damage to the enemy or just killing it. Drops a Fire Infusion Remnant on exploding. More Fire Infusion, or like Infusion shenanigans. It now has a base duration of 5 seconds. I'm not kidding. This is like Infusion the League from everything that I'm reading. Base critical strike chance, nerf. Previously 31. They changed it by 1 flat damage? Why? Does someone at the company not like the number 31? Scaling up to 340 to 510 fire damage at gym level 20. Buff at the higher levels. Just think it's such a strange thing to change it by a literal value of 1. Just think it's funny. Now passively increases your chance to block while active. Magma Barrier. Cool. Over time, it charges up with lava. While fully charged, your next block with your shield will spray lava in front of you and grant an endurance charge. This is kind of a nerf. The block chance is definitely appreciated, but before, every time you blocked, it would like spew out the lava, as long as you had like recently done it. But now it's like a charge up. I don't really like that. You could like literally make a magma barrier build before. Now grants 25% increased block chance. That's a lot of increased block chance. Magma spray now has 6 to 8 fire damage per evasion. Has a radius of 2.8 meters. Small nerf on the flat. Big buff on the percentage increase. Quality increases block chance even more. Definitely a massive defensive buff, but you're no longer really going to be able to do like a magma barrier specific build, I would say. Mana Drain, granted by Attuned Wands, now leeches 30 through 408 mana at gym levels 1 through 20. Previously 10 through 136, that's a big difference. Now has 70% reduced mana leech rate at all levels. Quality now provides 0 through 90 additional mana leeched. So more flat, but then just going to be getting it back slowly? What was it before? It doesn't tell us what it used to be. Is this just new? Mana Remnants now grants 47 through 280 mana gem levels 4 through 20. Previously 35 through 8. Small buff for the Mana Andes. Mana Tempest now has a minimum gem level of 7. Small buff for Acquisition. Mantra of Destruction. Quality now requires 0 through 1 fewer combos to use. Previously 0 through 2. That's kind of nice. 0 combos? Thought they wanted us to use combos. Now steps backwards instead of forwards if used while moving in the opposite direction to where you're targeting or attacking in place. It inflicts 200% more flammability and has 100% more ignite duration. Secondary projectile count no longer can be modified. Quality now grants 0 through 30% increase elemental exposure on hit. I don't really play Molten Blast, but I thought it was like a little clunky, so if used while moving change, that could make it feel a whole lot better. I don't know. I'm probably still not going to end up playing it. Orb of Storms now triggers from casting any spell in its radius. Previously only lightning spells. Nice. It now creates a lightning infusion remnant. All of its bolts are used up before its duration expires. It now has a maximum of 8 bolts. Now has a base duration of 3.6 or radius of 3.6 meters. got a little bit of a buff. Orbistorm's got a little bit of a buff there. Overwhelming Presence and Withering Presence are now described as aura skills and have the aura tag. Perfect Strike. Okay, I love this skill. Perfect Strike now has an attack damage of 470 to 1029 at gem levels. Oh, we got nerfed? What? No! No! My on-hit Perfect Strike build, dude. What? We got nerfed by 300%. This is bad news, guys. Permafrost Bolts now has 200 through 504% more buildup. Previously 80% all gem levels. That's a big buff. Plasma Blast has 50% more magnitude of shocks inflicted. That's a big buff too. Poison Burst Arrow quality now provides 20% more magnitude of poisons inflicted. Oh, more. Oh, it's more now instead of increased. Wow. Huge buff. Rain of Arrows. Quality now provides arrows fall 20% faster instead of additional projectiles. I think that's a nerf. I think that's a nerf. Profane Ritual. Quality now provides 0 through 10% chance to not destroy consumed corpse. Raise Zombie. Quality now provides 0 through 25% increased effective empowerment on raised zombies instead of 20% more minion movement speed. Very nice. Rake is no longer incorrectly tagged as a travel skill. Slow clap. Good job. This tag was left over from an early version of the skill that traveled much further without a target, whereas the released version of Rake does not meet the criteria for a travel skill. Please note that this was not a balance-motivated change. Please don't get mad at us. Consistency is the primary goal of gym tags, and we would have nerfed the Rake plus Stomping Ground interaction in a different way instead if it was appropriate for Rake to retain the travel tag. I hope this is saying that the Rake plus Stomping Ground interaction is gone. I wish they would have just outright said it, like, bye-bye. It was dumb. I expected them to hotfix it. Rapid Assault. The spearheads left by the final strike now last for 30 seconds. Previously 10 seconds. I like that. I really love Rapid Assault. I could see myself maybe playing a Rapid Assault build. Rapid Shot no longer has a delay before firing bolts, or 50% less reload speed. It now has 100 maximum ammunition at all gem levels. Okay, Rapid Shot gets a little bit of a buff. Yeah, we buffed it. Robo Mount. 15% increased movement speed while mounted. That's a lot of extra movement speed. However, it now grants 80% less movement speed penalty while using skills, previously 100%. Approximately canceling out the bonus while using a skill. It's a nerf. That's a nerf. Ripwire Ballista has been renamed to Artillery Ballista. It now fires a hail of bolts into the air, landing in the area, hitting all enemies within the area a number of times equal to its projectile count. Bolts now fire 4 projectiles, previously 5. Small nerf. Ooh. Big nerf. They're pin ballistas now. Rolling Slam now has 1.5 seconds to total attack limit. Previously 1 second. What? Why? No. No! It's even slower? It no longer has an attack speed penalty. I guess I'm just going to have to see how it feels. It makes me nervous. Quality now provides 100% increased stun threshold while using skill instead of causes daze buildup with a physical damage dealt. I can't tell if this is a nerf. I can't tell. Yeah. Now, the stun threshold will probably feel good, but like, will you have that when you really need it, which is like early on? Rolling slams now is plus 1.5. Oh, we just read that. Scavenged plating, 4% more armor. Previously 3 through 5%. Okay, so it got nerfed. Wow. Wow, they really nerfed scavenged plating. They nerfed the hell out of it. Impact now deals 94 through 145% of attack damage at gym levels. That's a big old buff for Siege Cascade. Seismic Cry cooldown is no longer reset if it doesn't empower attacks. Is this a change directly aimed at my non-warrior Warcry build? Now heavy stuns enemies that are primed for stun. Oh wait, I thought it's cooldown reset if you didn't stun something. Has the same stun change or the power change as the other Warcry got. You can bypass the cooldown through another means. That's pretty cool. Empowered attacks, okay. So nothing really there for corrupted blood. A little bit of a bummer. Shield charge, the skills-based movement speed has been reduced by 25%. If you didn't see, this is like one of the big things that they teased, that you can now spam shield charge. Shield wall curvature has been reduced, and is wall now 40% longer by default. This thing got a big old glow up. So shield charge and shield wall are now very interactable. And shield wall is huge now. Huge. Shock burst rounds. Pulse explosion attack damage has been lowered by approximately 15%. Shockwave totem. Slam now has an attack speed of 50%, previously 100%. That's a big nerf. Slam now has 30 through 66% attack damage. That's a big nerf. While on Jagged Ground, the eruption. Jagged Ground eruption will deal some more damage, but I don't know. I think that's a nerf. Cannot itself create Jagged Ground. They just want you to combo it with something. That's what they're saying, I guess. They don't want you to just spam Shockwave Totem. Siphoning Strike. Shockwave now takes the size of monsters into account. Quality now provides chance to daze on hit instead of stun buildup. Skeletal Arsonist. Explosive Demise is now an attack instead of a spell, dealing 300% increased attack damage. Now deals additional fire damage equal to 8% of minions at maximum life. Percentage of maximum life is huge, but it's a nerf. It used to be 12%. Wow. Skeletal Brute is a new command skill. Shattering War. Shattering War is a warcry that intimidates nearby enemies and consumes frenzy charge on enemies and allies to deal damage in an area around those targets. Bone Shatter attack now deals 50% more damage on the initial strike and 100% more damage on the shockwave. Quality now provides minions cause 0 through 40% more stun buildup. Skeletal Brute just got a big buff. Skeletal Arsonist got nerfed, but the Brutes are looking good. Quality now provides revived skeletons are immune to damage for 0 through 3 seconds after being revived instead of 0 through 30% more maximum minion life. Skeletal Frost Mage has a new command skill, Ice Armor. Ice Armor coats minions in an area in frost, reducing the damage they take from hits, causing enemies that hit them to take cold damage. I like that. Is it less damage? It'll help them be a little bit more survivable. But now the quality gives them more damage, so that's pretty huge. Skeletal Sniper, command, gas arrow, now 6 seconds, previously 8. They got buffed. Yep, Skeletal Snipers get a little bit of a buff. Storm Mage. Huge buff. Huge buff on the command skill there. Snipe. Explosion is no longer guaranteed critical hit and doesn't have increased critical hit damage bonus. Explosion now deals 363 through 936 attack damage at gym levels. Massive buff for Snipe. Solar Orb no longer has a mana cost. Pulse now deals. That's just because Solar Orb is on a weapon now, I believe. Sorcery Ward. Quality now grants barrier, can take elemental damage up to 5% of your armor and evasion rating. Previously 10%. Pretty significant nerf there. Can now be cold infused to fire a large amount of icy sparks in a circle, dealing both lightning. Okay. Cold and lightning damage. I don't know if Spark needed extra love, but it got it. Spear of Solaris. Initial hit now deals approximately 29% less damage, while the pulses now deal 50% more damage. Just a exchange of responsibility there for the skill. Quality now provides 25% chance to retain glory. It's a glory skill. Barf. Spearfield. I love Spearfield. Oh, dude, Spearfield is looking good. That's a big buff. Now deals less damage on the first 0.5 seconds. Why do they keep doing this? Is this really necessary? Like, for cold and, like, Spearfield now? What's the reasoning behind this? I don't get it. Why can't skills deal damage when we use them? I don't know. No longer has an unintentionally hidden 300% more damage after 0.5 second. I didn't know that. Is this a nerf? Is this a Spearfield nerf? I'm pretty sure 349% after 0.5 is like way better than 204% with the first 0.5 dealing 80% less. They nerfed Spearfield pretty heavily, actually. Wow. I didn't expect that. Stormwave now additionally hits targets slightly to either side of your character. Stormblast bolts. I'm gonna drink some water. It got buffed. Sunder. Slower. Doesn't consume armor. Doesn't guarantee a crit. %20 increased physical damage taken. For a duration. How long's the duration? I don't know. Sounds like a nerf. Supercharged Slam. Got a damage buff. I think they moved some of the damage over to its just upfront damage, and then the scaling through the stages is a little bit lower. I would say that's a buff, in all honesty. Kind of a quality of life at the same time. Tempest Bell now provides 0 to 3% more damage per hit the active Bell has taken instead of Bell is destroyed after 0 through 2 hits. No limit? Okay. Now has a minimum gem level of 7, previously 13. Now has Curse slows targets by 46 through 59% at gem levels 7 through 20, previously 24 through 28%. A buff. Temp Chains buff. Thunderous Leap, 30% chance to leave shocked ground. Detonating Spears. It just got an additional effect. Time of Need, attribute requirements ratio is now 75% strength and 25% intelligence, previously 100% strength. Haven't ever used it, I guess. Toxic Growth, pustules now deal 46 through 100%, previously 42%. That's a big old buff. Now applies to all elemental damage instead of elemental attack damage. That's a buff. skill speed instead of attack speed. That's a buff. Unearth can now be used on dead skeletal reviving minions once per death to create a bone construct. Bone constructs created by Unearth now have a dash attack they can use to close the distance to an enemy. Quality now increases bone construct movement speed. The description has been updated to indicate that larger corpses can create more than one bone construct. Sounds kind of cool. Minion players got it so good, dude. They're so spoiled. Vaulting Impact now allows you to jump over enemies in small amounts of terrain. Yes, dude. We're Leap Slam now. Oh, we're Leap Slam now, dude. To support this, a number of changes to camera movement have been made that result in smoother camera movement during skills. I love it. I love it. Volcanic Fissure now creates two branches that emerge from either side of the main fissure. The length of the fissure is now affected by area modifiers. Now has a minimum gem level of 7. You're going to be getting it sooner. Has 80% of the physical converted, previously 60%, 145%, previously 163, so slightly less damage, but you're getting some more conversion, so you can scale it, I think, a little bit more easily. Aftershocks cannot trigger more than once every 0.2 seconds. Quality now provides 20% chance to cause an aftershock. Every 0.2 seconds is still pretty fast. I cannot tell if I've got hair in my eyes or if my eye is just having like a moment, bothering the heck out of me. Voltaic Grenade now applies the electrocution debuff to enemies on hit for 6 seconds. Big buff. Oh. No, never mind. Electrocution buff, but then damage nuke. It got really, really nerfed in the damage. Holy cow. Vulnerability Curse now inflicts minus armor and a lot more. Vulnerability huge buff. War Banner, Glory, 25% more attack damage and increased accuracy rating. Also grants increased attack speed. I could see someone using this if they want the steroid. Wave of Frost now freezes enemies that are primed for freeze. Whirling Slash. Movement is now able to pathfind slightly, making it less likely to get stuck on small obstacles. I always love small little qualities of life. Nobody wants to be the guy leap slamming around getting stuck in the wall. Whirlwind Lance. Collapsing Whirlwind now deals 20% more damage. Whirlwinds created by Whirlwind Lance now have a limit of 6 whirlwinds, previously 5. Yeah, it's a big old buff. Duration of 15 seconds. Huge buff. Wind Serpent's Fury no longer causes shockwaves when enemies are hit into walls or larger enemies. Quality now provides 0 through 30% more knockback distance instead of 30% increased knockback distance. I think that's a nerf. Oh wait, but the knockback distance is pretty big. Wind Blast now dazes on hit instead of causing daze build up, equal to the percentage of the physical damage dealt. Straight up dazes them. 24. Why am I combining 20? It's like I'm trying to say 24 or something. Quality now provides 20% more, not 24, damage to enemies within 1.5 meters of you, scaling down to no bonus at 4 meters or further. I'm really struggling to read that one. Updated the description for Raging Spirits to clarify that the Flaming Skulls do not follow player commands as they're busy raging. Clarified the addition to radius per stage for Whirling Slash and Whirlwind Lance descriptions. Updated the wording and presentation for Plague Bearer to be more simplified. Updated the description of Thunderous Leap to mention that it detonates spear skills. Unique item changes. Alright. Bearer's Anguish Unique Charm. Ignited Ground. Equal to 500% of your maximum life. No longer ignites enemies in your presence on use. Blackbeard Unique Armor now has 100 through 150% increased armor, previously 100%. Small buff. Bones of Uller Unique Boots now provide preservation efficiency of undead minions. Oh, wow. It's a buff. And it's a scaling range, so you can get a good pair or a bad pair. Existing items will have reduced reservation efficiency, but can be updated with a Divine Orb. It also now has 5 to 15% increased movement speed. Nice. Big old buff for that item. Brisk Wrap unique body armor now has gained deflection equal to evasion rating. Death's Harp now has 25% increased critical damage bonus. Effigy of Cruelty unique focus now has critical hits with spells apply critical weakness. Maligaro's Virtuosity unique gloves now have your critical damage bonus is 250%. A little bit of a nerf there. Azir's Judgment unique quarterstaff now has days on hit instead of causes days build up. Increased melee damage against stunned enemies. Briar's Embrace unique body armor now provides 20 through 40% increased mana if cost efficiency instead of reduced cost of skills. Change does not affect existing versions of the item. Waddle's Moat unique body armor now has gain deflection rating equal to 40 through 60% of evasion rating. It's got the same thing as the Brisk Wrap. I guess it's just like a better Brisk Wrap. Tangle Tongue unique spear now has 5 through 8% critical hit chance, previously 10 through 20%. Whoa! 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 Wow! That's a big nerf. Wow. I was expecting like 10 to 15% or something, but wow, that's pretty big. Whispering Ice unique staffs inflict cold exposure on hit, lowering total cold resistance. Now applies to elemental exposure instead. Soft's Blood unique amulet enemies in your presence have fire exposure modifier now applies elemental exposure. I need to drink some water, my mouth's dry. Following unique items can no longer drop and will be introduced at a later date. Inferno class, Forbidden Gaze, Thunderstep, the Wailing Wall, the Fallen Formation, Violent Stake, the Deepest Tower, and the Remembered Tales. Red Blade Banner unique shield now has 10 through 15% increased block chance. 20 through 30%, wow. Existing items. That's a nerf, isn't it? Why would you want to update it? Don't update your Red Blade banners. The Lycosa unique shield has increased block chance from 30 through 40%. Why did Lycosa have so much block chance? Holy cow. The Merit of Service unique shield now has 20 through 25% increased block chance from 30 through 50% increased items. Yeah, all of these are like nerfs to shields basically because of the changes. I don't think you should update your shields because it's just going to make them worse. Can be updated. Doesn't mean you should. Doomgate unique shield now has 80 through 100% increased block chance from 80%. Now has you take 25 through 40% of damage blocked hits from 20%. Item changes. How big is this section? Liquid emotions is what they're called now. Lowest tiers of liquid emotions. I'm probably going to be speed reading this section. Diluted and concentrated liquid emotions. This is like delirium changes. Orb chances are now more likely to succeed on amulets, rings, belts, and charms. Overhaul orbs are now found during the Trial of Chaos, less often from other sources. Kinda lame. Following omens can no longer be obtained. Omen of greater annulment. Okay, just omen changes. 4-pick, battle pick, strife pick, and mace implicit modifiers are now 5 through 10% critical damage bonus, previously 10 through 15%. That's a nerf. Implicit modifier for construct hammer, structured hammer, and fortify hammer. I think all of the days changes are buffs, in all honesty. Reduce the number of increases block chance from shields. Sniffa. Holy cow. I am sniffing so much during this. Corruption implicit on shields is now 10 through 15% increased block chance, previously 30 through 40%. Iron runes now grant 14, 16, 18% physical damage. These are all just rune changes. We'll see them as we progress. Does it even matter? You're still going to be using them. They're just going to be slightly less powerful or more powerful. Soul core changes. on helmets, so they're adding some specifications for some of the soul cores so that you can't just put it in everything. I guess that's valid. That's valid. Talismans. More reservation wording change. Small buff on the Talisman of Ralakash. A lot of these things now work on foci. Lowest value of plus to skills on two-handed weapons is now +2. Wands and foci 50% higher on average, so wands got a little bit of a buff. Crit got a nerf on wands. No more minion accuracy modifiers on jewels. Yeah, a bunch of the minion accuracy mods are just gone now. Weapon swap mods are gone. Monster changes. Coming to a playthrough near you. Lowered the growth on monster evasion rating with level. Gonna be hitting them a little bit more often. 30% less evasion rating than before. That's really nice. Failing to collect the hourglass during the Zarko or temporal boss fight no longer fails your trial of the Sekimas, now instead only damaging your honor. If you failed to collect the hourglass, Zarok temporal now enters a secondary phase where the hourglass and slow debuff persists but at a much slower rate. The life of most Act 3 bosses has been reduced by approximately 15%. Okay. I thought they were too tanky. Rogue Exiles are now tankier. Treant Foulspawn can once again be bound as a Spectre. Guess they were causing a bug before. Non-unique items on Rogue Exiles are now affected by increased rarity of items. Monsters in the Viridian Wildwood unique map now have a lower aggro range while in the darkness. Map version of the Rattlecage, the Earthbreaker boss has been renamed to Volkar, the Emberborn, to better distinguish between the two fights. Periodic invulnerability or a monster modifier now only makes things immune to damage from enemies. I feel like I don't understand this. Reduce the number of river hags that spawn in the drowned city. They were so numerous. They were so annoying. They were like the most numerous monster there, and they were constantly spamming that stupid orb on you. Incrementally improved monster behavior. You better make them not use that orb as much. They're misbehaving. Quest changes. The hunt begins must now be completed in a single instance. You still only have to complete the quest once per league. Zarka and the Ardur Caravan now offers the Earning Passage quest reward if you didn't take it from her in the Vastiri outskirts. User interface changes. Party member revive UI now displays whether you're too far away to revive a dead party member. Ritual favor UI now displays the number of rerolls available. Modifier ranges on items now show a positive sign if the modifier range spans both negative and positive values. Wisp minimap icons are no longer removed from your minimap if you run out of range of them. That's really nice. You are now able to respawn the checkpoint from the escape menu in the tutorial, or in the trial of the Sekimas, Trials of Chaos, which will take you back to the entrance of the respective trial. Checkpoints, always appreciated. I am very hyped. What about you? When using a controller, you can now remove buffs from your character when the game is paused. Improved management of cache files on consoles to avoid running out of temporary storage space. This should fix issues with the minimap being reset on leaving and re-entering an area, and online item filters failing to load. This is just a bunch of quality of life stuff. Sniffa. I'm still sniffy. On an item in your inventory to fill the I have section in the currency exchange. Added support for the import keyword and item filters. And microtransaction changes. Bug fixes. That's it. Sure are a lot of buffs, but then there's some strange nerfs. So chicken is definitely better than steak. My highlighter keeps doing this weird thing where it's like highlighting literally everything. But yeah, some strange nerfs like Perfect Strike got nerfed. Giant's Blood got nerfed. No mention of life nodes, so I'm pretty sure Energy Shield is still the meta, along with Evasion. The top right of the passive tree definitely got better with Deflection. And there's a couple of other things that I'm probably forgetting to summarize, but I don't know. I'm going to be getting in there and I'm going to give it a try. I'm not really too upset about any of the things. I just think it's more funny that Warrior is getting nerfed and, block chances being lowered. But we're going to give it a try, right? I'm not trying to be upset about it. I just think some of them are a little weird. I don't know. But it's a massive patch. There's going to be a huge amount of things to explore. Huge amount of things to explore. So, yeah. That's it for the patch notes reading.